You have not seen the end of me, boy. I will keep coming back until I get you all. An excerpt from Edge of Perception by Steve Bellinger. Welcome to P English Literature, a YouTube channel that conveys Amazon, Goodreads, blog, and video book reviews coupled with interviews with authors. It's a perfect channel for book lovers, authors, and writers generally. P English Literature, the exact channel for you and me. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and to the review of Edge of Perception by Steve Bellinger, a paranormal science fiction love story. I love this book because it is very enthralling, it is captivating, it is absorbing, it had me resonating and mulling over the fierceness of a curse. Part of it also detail the space travel, the idea of going back into the time as denoted in the author's book titled The Chronicle and About Adventure in Time. Edge of Perception is a book that I find very absorbing. After encountering the author's first book, that's The Chronicle and About Adventure in Time, I'm very enthralled to pick up Edge of Perception. And I love his use of word, I love his storytelling techniques, I love the way the story is written. It is written in a way that you'll be able to put yourself in. And when I pick it up, I couldn't drop it until I finish it. Honestly, it is captivating. It's actually a love story that stylishly resonates into the idea of spirituality. And that's another thing I love about the book. I love the spiritual composition of the book. I love the spiritual feature and characteristics that it possesses. And it had me mulling over the fierceness of a curse. Okay, before I talk about this book, I'd love to read to you the synopsis that was inscribed at the back page of the book. If ghosts can visit us, can we visit them? Ron Levy's education and career are firmly rooted in science, but a curse that dates back to the days of slavery has plagued him since childhood. Born in a black ghetto in Chicago in the 1960s, Ron's pragmatism is at odds with his experiences, whether it is the trial of an interracial relationship or the supernatural forces that he can't seem to avoid. Just when you think he's finally found peace of mind, Ron's life is upended by tragedy. He gets the opportunity to use science to try to communicate with the dead and to finally confront the evil that has plagued him and his family for generations. And this is actually very true. That is very captivating and it explains the problem, the tragedy, the diverse sort of circumstances that Ronald, who is actually the protagonist in this novel, undergo. Honestly, the book is very captivating. It is emotional to some art and aspect. It is tragic to other aspects. I find myself thinking about Ronald, how his life is so much, struck into different sort of mystery, different sort of bad issue, different sort of ugly circumstances. It's a story that is very spiritual. And when I read through Edge of Perception, I immediately fell in love with Steve Bellinger's writing, and now I'm a fan of his work. I'm a fan of his novels. Honestly, it is very enthralling. Okay, before I talk about this book, my review of this book is actually going to be a spoiler free, but I'd love to read to you a short description about the author. Steve Bellinger fell in love with science fiction with the first Tom Swift book that he read as a child. When his mom, who worked for a printing company, brought home an Isaac Asimov novel, he was blown away by it and at the tender age of 13 decided he wanted to write. Creating homemade comic books and had written manuscript in wire-bound notebooks. As a young adult, he found he just couldn't get his stories published anywhere. So he combined two of his passion, writing and radio, and created several original radio dramas, producing them in his homemade recording studio. though the years is written content for website, articles for local newspapers, and even the junior high school booklet for the AMA church. But it wasn't until he turned 65 that he realized his dream of having a science fiction novel published called The Chronicle, which actually reviewed some months ago. I left a link to my review of The Chronicle also in the description part of the video. So, Steve's affection for science and science fiction continues. He is a lifelong fan of Star Trek. He owns 2 uniforms and Doctor Who. Yes, he has his own 12-foot long scarf. He's met many of the stars of his favorite program at convention, including Nichelle Nichols, James Doohan from the original Star Trek series, and even Tom Baker and most famous Doctor Who of them all. But the list of celebrities Steve has shaken hand with also include real-life heroes like NASA Space Shuttle astronaut Joan Higginbotham and Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon. Steve lived in the Lincoln Park community in Chicago, Illinois, with his wife, Donna. Find out more about Steve at his website www.stevebellinger.com or on Facebook, and I actually left a link to his website also in the description part of this video. This book actually details the life of the protagonist, Ronald, whose life has been thrust into different sorts of tragedy, whose life has faced some sort of bad issue when he was much younger. You know, Ronald was actually or has been tormented with a particular spirit called Tokoloshe, which is actually a particular spirit that tormented his grandfather. When Ronald was much younger, he would have some sort of a weird dream. He would have some sort of bad dream that would keep him perspirating, that would keep him screaming, and something like a smoke would appear to him in his room, and he would scream out. Initially, I think his mother had no idea of what was happening to him. They actually thought it's a medical problem, so they took him to the hospital, and they were like, oh, probably suffering some sort of mental problem, or is suffering from some sort of anxiety, etc. So, but until the point whereby this particular spirit keep appearing to Ronald over and over again, and sometimes he will scream out of his room and start shouting whenever he sees this Tokoloshe coming to attack him. Tokoloshe is actually a demon from the pit of hell, as told in the novel, and it does come to oppress Ronald whenever it rains in the dark and there's a thunderstorm outside. That's the time whereby Tokoloshe will come to trouble Ronald. So the story kept unfolding, and it was unfolded in a dynamic manner. So once the parents of Ronald see that its action towards this particular demon or its fright and this particular issue was not going to be solved. A particular day, his grandmother asked him, Ronald, what's wrong with you? Why did you scream? What happened to you last night? So he told her that he saw something like an evil spirit, something like a demon coming to attack him. And from there, his grandmother was able to realize that, oh yeah, I remember, that is a wicked demon called Tokoloshe. The same demon attacked my grandfather. So she brought out something like a talisman, which is called juju in African language. So he handed this juju over to him and told him that whenever you see it coming back to you the next time, you hold it in your hand and recite some sort of incantation and say, Tokoloshe, you demon from the pit of hell, you must not trouble this child of God any longer. At first, Ronald had some sort of a misconception towards it. He's a scientist, and in my perception, scientists often have a sort of, misconception, or they do not have much belief in spirituality. They believe in what is physical, they believe in experimenting things, and they believe in observation, they believe in results and all of that. It took him some time to understand the effectiveness of this particular juju talisman that was handed over to him. So this is how Ronald has been living his life. Sometimes he would make use of the juju talisman whenever Tokoloshe come to show up himself. He does keep this particular juju under his pillow, and whenever it rains and there's thunderstorm outside, it will bring it out whenever Tokoloshi come attacking. And that's how Ronald has been living his life over and over again, until the point whereby he even graduated as a physics graduate. So the story kept unfolding, and it was unfolding in a dynamic manner. Ronald kept growing, and it got to a point whereby he ought to, get married, and he started finding love in different women. Started finding love in different girls. The first girl he fell in love with was called Delonis. Oh, I love Delonis' characterization. I love his experience with Ronald, and I love some sort of sensual characteristics that was talked about in the book. And this particular point had me resonating, and it added more charm to the making of the book in entirety, in a way that it had me order the book that I didn't actually want to drop it. So Ronald and Delonis date themselves, and they actually have a sort of a nice, move together. They had a nice relationship. However, during the time that Delonis was dating Ronald, she had another sort of likeness, another sort of love to another guy called Hank. And sometimes whenever, Ronald is with Delonis, and whenever she loves talking about Hank all the time, it infuriates Ronald. Well, unknowing to Ronald that Delonis is actually going to leave him someday. So a particular day, he couldn't get in touch with Delonis anymore, and whenever he calls a number, it's either it rings and there was no pickup, or to the point whereby he met his other friend, and he told him that, oh, Delonis, he just moved in with Hank some week ago, and they're now living together as husband and wife. Ronald was left heartbreaking because he loved Delonis wholeheartedly. However, something strange happened to Delonis towards the ending part of the book, which I'll probably have to make reference to later on. It was very tragic, it was bad, and when she came back needing the help of Ronald, it was very long, it was too long, and it is something like this beyond amendment. So life goes on, and Ronald found another girl called Shelley. Shelley is very beautiful, she's amazing, and I love her characterization. But the situation that surrounds her life in the novel had me thinking about the outcome of her life. So Ronald eventually get married to Shelley, and they had a beautiful wedding. However, I was somehow, fascinated with Shelley's tradition as told in the book. They have some sort of ugly tradition that when I was reading the book, I was like, oh my god, really? Does that actually exist? Well, it's a science fiction novel. I don't know the reality of, Shelley's tradition that she has in terms of comparing it to the real world, comparing it to a contemporary world, if it's actually real or false, if it's a reality or it's just a fictitious trait used by the author in the novel. So after Ronald's blissful marriage with Shelley, they eventually gave birth to a young girl. They gave birth to a very beautiful baby girl called Wendy. Now there's another transition somewhere that I found very captivating, because something terrible happened to Wendy. The same demon that tormented her father when he was much younger had come to torment Wendy. Wendy sometimes would scream in a room, and sometimes they would watch her. Okay, someone actually saw her and asked her mother, Shelley. Shelley had observed that Wendy sometimes would be speaking alone. She would stay in a room and be communicating with someone that you cannot even see, like an invisible friend. And she had called this friend Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones, I don't know, an imaginary friend, will come visiting Wendy in a room, and they will have some sort of conversation together. So when Shelley noticed this, he quickly called the attention of Ronald to it. At first too, Ronald said they were going to take her to the hospital, but they actually unaware that this is actually not an hospital case. This is Wendy being possessed, or this is Wendy being, exposed to some sort of an imaginary world. Okay, something happened to Wendy, and whenever Tokoloshi come attacking her, she would start screaming again. And this has been happening over and over again, to the point whereby Shelley was infuriated. So Wendy was actually disturbed, and sometimes she would ask her husband, Ronald, are you sure Tokoloshi will not come back again to trouble our daughter? Are you sure he has gone for good? Because there's a particular night whereby the Tokoloshi actually come to trouble Wendy, and when she screamed, they quickly rushed to her room, and Ronald ate the juju talisman and recite the incantation to the point whereby Tokoloshi actually disappeared. So from there, Shelley has been having some sort of, she was afraid, she was scared because she doesn't know if Tokoloshi will actually come back or not. And whenever she asked Ronald, Ronald will assure her and said, no problem, you don't have to worry. He's gone and he's gone for good. He's not ever going to come back again. When they actually grow up and she studied nursing, and something happened to her a particular day. She actually made a kind of representation before a particular day where he went to visit a friend, and in the point of physical activity, something, etc., she just fell down and she died at that spot. So eventually, I think an autopsy was conducted, and she was made to know that she had a sort of a bad gene called the CPVT gene. But in my own perception, I don't think she actually died normally because of a bad gene. I think the same demon who had once tormented his forefather and the same demon that tormented his own father had come to claim her life. And the expert had been thinking on the fierceness of a curse. And that's one thing I love about the book. I love the spiritual trait and characteristics that it possesses, because it had me thinking, it had me pondering. This part had me resonating on the biblical curse that was placed on Eli and its effects on Ophni and Phinehas. So after the death of Wendy, Ronald and Shelley was made to live in tragedy again. It was very hard on them. The aftermath of Wendy's death was bad on Shelley. She couldn't cope anymore. So at a particular day, she left a letter for her husband Ronald and said, oh, I'm sorry, Ronald, I cannot continue in this marriage anymore. Wherever I go in this house, I always see Wendy. I always see Wendy. A thought cannot leave my heart, and I cannot go on with this. I'm sorry, I would have to leave, and I'm coming back. But she never come back, and it left another problem on Ronald's life. Ronald was filled with another sort of tragedy. Firstly, she lost her grandmother. Secondly, she lost her daughter. And now our only wife is gone, leaving her life shattered, leaving her in a state of, bad marriage, shattered marriage. And this had him thinking over and over again. However, I wouldn't love to talk much about this book. I'd just love to leave the review spoiler free so that you would want to check out how Ronald survived it immediately. What became of his life? What's the aftermath of the old story? What's the aftermath of the old issue? I love to mention that there's a sort of a transition somewhere that I found absolutely amazing in the book. The instance whereby Ronald got a job that is going to earn him thousands to $1,000,000. The instance whereby he was being employed to come and speak with some spirit. The instance whereby some spirit will be having sex with human being. The instance whereby he was able to travel back to the time. He was able to meet some sort of people and be able to communicate with a spiritual world. And the instance whereby there's a lot of people that he was actually working with that they were able to communicate with the spirit. And this actually gave Ronald the opportunity to meet with Delonix, to meet with Randy, to have a conversation with the people that he had long time mixed. But when the whole issue was actually going on, another girl, which is actually like a ghost that Ronald met eventually, so Tokoloshi came to come and meet him. I said, oh, I'm still gonna come and meet this girl. I'm gonna take her because I took your grandmother, I took Delonix, I took your daughter Wendy, and Tokoloshi is such a wicked demon that is actually ranging for war. And the characterization of Tokoloshi in the book actually added more charm to the book. And that's one thing I want to say about the book, is that it had some sort of spirituality feature that I found very enthralling, that I find captivating. I don't want to spoil it, but one thing I also find about the book is that some part of it is trying to communicate, is trying to find a scientific, proof about spirit, about ghosts. And one of the things that was actually expounded in the book is that ghosts operate at a particular time. They have the energy to work at a particular weather, at a particular instance. That was actually expounded in the book. And again, I love Ronald's characterization, especially his sort of imagination, which was written in italic throughout the novel. It added more charm to the book. Undoubtedly, Steve Bellinger is a fantastic science fiction writer, and I love his words. I'm a fan of his work. I love his use of word. I love his choice of words. I love his storytelling techniques. His word has a power to pull a reader in a way that you keep thinking, you keep reading until you finish it. And I find absolutely joy, absolute pleasure while I read through Edge of Perception by Steve Bellinger. I don't want to talk too much about this book. I don't want to spoil it. I just want to leave a video book review, a short video recommendation of video book review for you to have a glimpse of what Edge of Perception is all about. It is very amazing. It is enthralling. Of the fact that the book oscillates between paranormal, between spirituality, between science, between physics, and all of this visual added a great trait to the making of this book. I also love the author's idea about the African juju, which I actually thought that is very predominant, mostly found in West Africa, even in Nigeria. So this is why I'm gonna stop my video book review of Edge of Perception by Steve Bellinger. If you watch this video to the next point and you're yet to click on the subscribe button, I want to urge you to please click on the subscribe button. Some weeks ago, P English Literature clocked 1,000 subscribers, and I'm so excited about it, and I want to use this privilege to appreciate those people who subscribe to this channel. I'm eternally grateful to you. And if you're watching and you're yet to click on the subscribe button, I want to urge you to please click on the subscribe button over there. Turn on the notification bell so you can get notified anytime I release a new video. Thank you very much for watching my video book review of Edge of Perception by Steve Bellinger. See you in my next video.